Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories, and I just realized that because this is a personal podcast, I can spend however long I want talking about my favorite foods in China. Duh! How was that not my first episode? How did I not immediately think of this as something I would talk about? I can't believe it's taken me so long to think, oh, maybe you should talk about all the food you love, since that's a huge part of what makes your world go round. In fact, boom, podcast magic, this is now the first episode. So, let's start with probably my favorite food, 啤酒烤鸭, which is beer-fried roast duck. No, it is not Beijing 烤鸭, which is Beijing roast duck, Peking roast duck, Peking duck, however you've heard that, the famous one that's on TikTok and all that kind of stuff. That's fine, but it's like minimum $20 for a whole duck, and there's a lot of fat under the skin. The very crispiest part of the skin has a good flavor. The sauce is absolutely the best part of that dish for me, but it's just underwhelming for my sensibilities. Yeah, it's basically too fatty, and the duck flesh meat itself doesn't have a very strong flavor. So I like Peking duck. I'm not crazy into it. On the other hand, I'm absolutely bonker bananas about 啤酒烤鸭, beer-fried roast duck, a perfectly multicolored, fried, air-dried roast duck in its entirety, with the drumstick ends thick with congealed flavor, and the flavor has seeped into the skin and then also into the flesh. So there's this savory, salty, beery flavor all throughout the duck. And if you get the one with the neck and head still attached, you can gnaw all the meat off the neck, which is maybe my favorite part. But let's get into the process of making this perfect specimen of Chinese cuisine. Okay, so you recognize the duck. The best beer-fried duck is always driven by an old grandpa or rarely a grandma. There's a lot of like boiling stuff and manual work of riding the bicycle around, which for some reason they don't use motorized bicycles. I think because it's a traditional recipe and only old people still make it, so they haven't upgraded to the motor scooters. I would definitely buy a 啤酒烤鸭 Sanlun Che guy a motor scooter. So you'll see this grandpa pedaling into a courtyard or something around dinner time, and on the back of his three-wheeled bicycle is a 1 meter by 1 meter glass box, and inside there's a rotating hub at the top with maybe 8 hooks on it, and each hook has a perfectly brown golden roast duck swinging around, just continually air drying. So when the vehicle stops and you're not drooling anymore, so you don't look like a slavering maniac, you calmly and coolly walk up and ask for a 啤酒烤鸭, and he'll say, 你会说中文吗? Which means, you can speak Chinese? And then you act like, oh yeah, it's not a big deal. Even though that's one of the like 10 words you know in Mandarin well enough to reliably pronounce. So I asked this grandpa how he makes the duck because it was my favorite duck, and it was so much better than even Beijing 烤鸭, and it's only 20 kwai, which is less than $3. It's just about $3, we'll say. So you get a full roast duck with strong, savory beer salt flavor throughout all of the meat, and it's $3. So I got that puppy 2-3 times a week when I found out about it. I think I got it once every day, actually, for the first couple weeks. And after I ate it 10 times, I asked him, how do you make this? This is the best thing I've ever had. And he told me how he made it. So there's a big metal pan at the bottom of that glass box I was talking about. So the first thing he does is fill up a huge pot with like crappy beer. Any beer is fine. He used Yanjing, the main beer in China. And then he soaks all the ducks in that for a day. And then he cooks it in that beer after it's marinated for a while. He says for like 8 hours. So they heat it up and it just kind of stews in there for a long time, overnight, he said. And so the flavor's all throughout the duck now, even down into the bones. The fat is cooked out from under the skin, but then it's in that mixture. So it's getting into all of the muscles and all of the skin. There's just a way strong flavor of duck fat mixed with all that beer. So after all that's done, he says he fried it, and I still don't really understand how he did it because, it's a bunch of full ducks. But he uses the pan in the middle. He says he puts oil in there and then fries the duck all over pretty quickly after all that day-long process is finished. So he does that in an hour, all of them. And then once they're fried, then he hangs that up on the hooks, and then they rotate, and he blows a fan over it, and they dry out until the skin is very tight on the meat. And the drier the meat, and especially the skin gets, the stronger the flavor is because the moisture is evaporating. And then I wander along and give him $3, and he gives me a full duck that took him 2 days to make. And I destroy it. In the beginning, I just got like a mess, like I was a medieval knight sucking the meat off a turkey bone. But I realized, I should bring those plastic disposable gloves that they give you with so much food in China, because so much of the food is finger food in China. So it's very common to have a packet of gloves to give you if you're getting something that is easy to eat with your hands, but is very messy. And I started bringing plastic gloves with me, and then I just ripped apart these beer-fried ducks. Sometimes I got 2 in a day when I was like celebrating, which celebrating means you finished work this week. Great job. And if I was very hungry or more than passably inebriated, I would get 2 ducks if the desire wasn't sated by the first. So that glorious creation is a beer-fried duck. 啤酒烤鸭, and if you are in China, find it. You know what another interesting thing is that locals don't know what a 啤酒烤鸭 is. Every Chinese person I asked thought I was talking about a Beijing 烤鸭, which is a very differently prepared. They don't use beer. It doesn't take as long to prepare. The skin is different. The fat stays in. Everything's different. So that's a different dish. And these are Beijing people who grew up in Beijing their whole life. And they had never seen or had a 啤酒烤鸭 before, a beer-fried duck. And one of them straight up didn't believe me and told me that I was just mixing up the 2 ducks until I brought her to a 啤酒烤鸭grandpa, showed her one, bought her one, and we ate it together. And she was blown away. And the city this is most popular in is in Beijing. And every time a Beijing friend didn't know what a 啤酒烤鸭 was, a local, I would take them to the 啤酒烤鸭and share one with them. And everybody tried it, and everybody did like it. But the flavor was too strong, or there wasn't enough fat. Chinese people like a lot of fat in their meats. But it is the perfect roast duck for me. No duck dish, and maybe no dish in any country at all compares. It's just perfect. Perfectly suited to my tastes. So I was shocked that none of my local Beijing friends knew what it was at all, or had ever tried one. So there's this sort of arcane quality to the duck as well that you can enjoy by getting it and then telling people, hey, do you know, I had the 啤酒烤鸭 yesterday. And they'll say, oh, the Beijing 烤鸭. You're like, no. This is a secret Hutong Chinese cuisine. And then you get to tell this fanciful, legendary myth like I just did detailing the exquisite nature of this duck dish that the locals have never tried themselves. I am at a loss how they did not know this. I still do not understand that to this day. But that is the啤酒烤鸭, and it's unbelievable. So let's move on to the first dish I ever had, and maybe that's why I value it so highly, because this is like peasant food and is not held in very high regard. But I do think the flavor is just, again, exquisite. It's very simple and perfectly melded together. It's called 西红柿鸡蛋, and, oh, I said it wrong. 西红柿鸡蛋. Yeah, that's it. 西红柿鸡蛋, which means tomato egg. And my preferred preparation and how it is traditionally made is with 刀削面. So you just have a block of dough, basically, that you've made. And this is how I make my noodles. And then you cut off chunks and slivers of it. And each sliver you cut off lands in the tomato-y soup and becomes a noodle. You can make noodles very easily with just flour, eggs. You mix it up into a dough, cut it into pieces. That's noodles. And so, yeah, they cut off these pieces. Those are all the noodles in the bowl. And then they fry an egg in oil, put it in there, and it's already a tomato soup with a couple pieces of tomato and a little bit of oil in there. And it's a very simple dish, but the tomato is very savory. They put in some salt, so it's not too sweet because cooked tomato is so sweet. But, you know, the sweetness is still in there. And then they put in a few herbs, and the fried egg adds a nice savory counterbalance to the very strong sweet flavor of the tomato. And it's a good chunk of protein to go with all the carbohydrates of the noodles. And you can eat it in 5 minutes or take your time savoring every very strong, packs a punch flavorful bite. And that might be the first word I learned in China, 西红柿鸡蛋面. Mian means noodles. I knew 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 绿色蓝色红色, green, blue, red, but I didn't know anything else, and I knew those from Rosetta Stone before I went to China, but I think that the first actual word I learned was 西红柿鸡蛋面, and I ordered it from this restaurant, and they were very kind, and when I said 西红柿鸡蛋面, they started just talking to me, and I didn't understand anything. But when I left, I did steal one of their menus, and I learned every single item on the menu, and that became my hub from where I learned other Chinese words. So I have a very fond memory of this dish, not just because of the taste, which I really do love if they make it perfectly, which everyone makes it differently. It's hard to find a perfect one, but boy, when they make it right, they make it right. But it also is sort of the foundation of my Mandarin as a whole. Like, it started with a bowl of 西红柿鸡蛋面. And then every single day, because this building was right behind our school, and it's a mom and pop shop out of nowhere, it's been torn down because they hate fun stuff in Beijing now. I would go there sometimes before and after class and get a bowl of this tomato egg noodle soup. And it hit the spot every single time, and they consistently cooked it perfectly. And over the year, I got better at my Chinese, and I started having long conversations about where this couple was from. They asked me about my family, what the heck I was doing in China. And yeah, it's an amazing memory that evolved over years until 6 years later, I left China. And then when I visited again last year, they were gone. But I will always have that dish and the memories of them almost raising me linguistically into Chinese culture. I pored over the Chinese characters on the sign above their shop and on the menu, just trying to figure out how the stylized script connected to the standard typewritten script I could understand. And it's a fascinating comparison to make. Like, there are standard scripts like cursive, but there are so many types of cursive when people write. It's interesting to study that written language for sure. Okay, let's move on from 西红柿鸡蛋面 to a great dish that's simpler but always hits the spot, 红烧牛肉. Now, this is great in Beijing and not great for me in the South. In the South, they seem to like sweeter meats in China, and I do not. That only is in like Foshan, Hong Kong, very far south, in a couple provinces. Most provinces in central and northern China like the saltier meat. But Hong Shao Niu Rou is soy sauce braised beef, and it can be Hong Shao Niu Rou Tang, like in a soup, or Hong Shao Niu Rou Swan Tai, like a stir-fried dish with the braised beef in it. And the flavor is, again, so strong because it's soy sauce and oil at very high heats, so everything's almost caramelized. And it's just this beautiful, salty, perfect mixture. It tastes great in a soup, tastes great in a stir-fry. It's great everywhere. You just have to make sure to get it in the northeast, north, central. In the south, they tend to put a lot more sugar into it, and it comes out more candied than a savory caramelization that goes good with other savory ingredients. Now that's a good everyday beef. So let's move on to a little more exotic sandwich called驴肉火烧, which is donkey meat in a flatbread almost. Very thin, like half a centimeter thin, the sides, and they cut open the bread and then put diced donkey meat inside that sandwich with jalapenos and onions. And you can get an egg soup or some kind of soup with it and dip the meat in there. Donkey meat is very salty, savory, strong flavor, not gamey at all. It's very tender also. It is a great meat. You can get the sandwich two ways. The normal way is 驴肉火烧, and that's with little bits of donkey fat still attached to the meat. Like I said, Chinese people really like fat and appreciate texture in every bite. So with the fat on it, it just tastes a little bit different. I never liked the fat very much, but I ate it for years, 4 years or something, because every single expat I knew and every single Chinese person I knew told me, yeah, you have to get fat. Chinese people only get food with fat. There's no way to ask for just lean meat. Expats who had lived there for years and my new Chinese friends all told me, you can't get lean meat. So I resigned myself to lean and fatty meat mixed together, which is the normal style of meat in China. And there were two reasons that this was okay for me, even though I really prefer lean meat. One, I was in China, and I quickly understood that their preference for different textures in foods was completely divorced from mine, and I was trying to expand my mind, so I did eat a lot more fat in China than I was used to, trying to understand that Chinese cultural appreciation for different textures in food. Number two, I was running a lot of marathons at the time. I had so much free time. I was constantly getting into new hobbies. So I was winemaking and building furniture and just doing all this stuff with my free time. Teaching English in China is like 20 hours a week job, and you have all disposable income. So at the time, I had finally gotten into podcasts, which I hadn't really missed the boat on. I just hadn't gotten on the boat. And missed the train on? I don't know. But I finally got into podcasts, and they're so long form that I started jogging longer while I was listening to them. And then one day I had jogged for 4 hours, and I suddenly wondered, how long am I jogging for every day? Or rather, how far? And so I got an app, and the next day I saw that I was jogging a half marathon a day. Regularly when I jogged for a couple hours a day. And then, so I was like, well, if you can do a half marathon and you jogged 4 hours the other day. So I just started jogging marathons. And it was pretty funny because I had just whatever basic app there is to track. So every, 6 miles, a female robot voice would go, 6 miles. Hour-long pause. Halfway. Hour-long pause. Almost there. Hour-long pause. Congratulations. And that was how I ran several marathons while I was living in this little town north of Beijing, listening to any manner of podcasts or albums as I jogged along. Which is all to say, don't worry, there is a point, I swear. Yeah, I'm talking about food now, so you're in for the long haul. I would always end at my same place, my favorite驴肉火烧restaurant, that donkey burger, the donkey sandwich I was talking about. Now, very tender meat. Everybody told me there was no way to get lean meat only. So I walk into the restaurant one day, and I was talking to the owner of it, because it's usually just me. It's a small town, so when I roll up, he's like, oh boy, that crazy American who runs 4 hours every day is going to come eat like 6 of these again, where like 1 is plenty usually for a normal human. And I got 4, and I told him, you do have the best sandwiches. I've been coming here for months. Like, obviously, I love your sandwiches. I just wish that I could get only lean meat, because the fatty meat, it's just not my favorite texture in Mandarin. And he responded, oh, but the fatty meat's the best part. Like, everyone likes the fatty meat. I have to give them the fatty meat. If you just want the lean meat, I can just give you lean meat. It's called 瘦肉. I didn't even answer the guy for like a minute straight. My brain was just like, how did none of the natives know how to say lean meat? Did you explain it wrong? How do none of the expats who have lived up to 20 years here not know how to say lean meat? Why did everyone tell you can't get lean meat here? And also just an overwhelming rush of gratitude to this store owner and his teachings. And that, after 3 years of something like that, living in China, was the first time someone had told me how to say lean meat. I had looked up in the dictionary. I tried to say it a bunch of times. The dictionary offered no hints. At the time anyway, maybe they're better now. 瘦肉 is like saying skinny meat. So if you say that, you can get only lean meat, and they'll take off a lot of the fat for you. And from that day on, 驴肉火烧 became my favorite sandwich in China. Actually, there is another contender for that title in the next episode. Now I didn't have to contend with the very chewy fat, which to me doesn't have a lot of flavor compared to the fats of other meats. I just had lean, salty, savory meat with some jalapenos, onions. You can dip it in your soup if you want, in this great sandwich, for 60 cents or whatever it was. And until I stopped living in that town, I went to that dude's shop almost every single time I finished jogging for the day. He was my language teacher and my sustenance provider, and I just loved getting like 4 of them and packing all of the calories that I just spent, 16% of the day working off. And it was fun. We would just chat about dumb town crap. Oh, you see the bridge? Yeah, they're like building something. Someone was fishing. He caught a fish. There are fishermen like every day. Oh, yeah? Yeah, big fish. That's like half the conversations we had. The other half the conversations were, where did you go today? By Jiutuan. Oh, far. Yeah. Oh. And then walk off shaking his head. And meanwhile, I'm just enjoying my spice. Oh, that's right. They provide you with a bunch of condiments. So you can put on soy sauce or vinegar or a spice mix of mala, which is like numbspicy. So there's Sichuan peppercorn, which has a numbing effect, and then lajiao, which is like ground up red pepper and chili oil. And you can put the chili oil on top. So you can get a lot of flavor on this sandwich from the condiments as well. But just the sandwich itself, I would eat that by itself with just a little bit of those jalapeno peppers and onions mixed in also. So great snack, great refueling sandwich. I highly recommend people try it. Oh, and I wanted to talk about this since we're bringing up the 驴肉火烧. Every 驴肉火烧 place has a menu pasted on the wall. And everyone gets the 驴肉火烧, the sandwich, and some kind of soup. But they have like 20 items on the menu that are slightly less common. You can get the donkey meat just by itself. You can get it fried in a thing. You can get some in a soup. And always listed last was the, if I remember correctly, Luro Qianro, which was the donkey penis. And you could get that served as like a sandwich or just slices of meat on a plate. And I think that's the only thing in China I never tried. And I'm saying it here. When I go back to China, I am going to try that. Can't leave something uneaten. They also sell donkey balls for you to eat. Just to close this section out on an appetizing note. All right, let's move on from the genuinely delicious donkey meat sandwiches, and we can move on to la rou restaurants, which are, how do I explain this? They're like cured. Okay, you know how there was like that bacon craze in the United States, and everyone was like, oh, if you just ate bacon with bacon on it, then you could sweat bacon. And like bacon was a huge thing. So in China, thousands of years ago, they were like, yeah, bacon's obviously the best. So they take the belly, the bacon part of the pig, and they cure it with salt and spices. And then you get this very tough pork belly with a rind of fat on the outside of it. And it's an extremely flavorful meat, maybe the most flavorful meat in China, just as the meat itself, a base ingredient. And so there are entire restaurants that have la rou suan tai and si hong shi la rou, and every kind of dish they can make with this la rou, because it's the centerpiece of anything you make with it. It's so strong, it's so overpowering in a way that I love, that you can get it with anything. Now, there's another overwhelming flavor in Sichuan as more of a method of cooking called ma la, numbing spicy, which I mentioned earlier. And those are usually separate. You don't get two super strong flavors together like that. But there is such thing as ma la suan tai la rou and other ma la rou dishes. So you get this super strong, numbing, spicy Sichuan peppercorn sauce cooked in a stir fry with the la rou and the accompanying whatever else you like. Actually, they don't offer whatever else. They offer very few things because Chinese cuisine is like, this goes with this and we don't break tradition. So in this dish, the one that I like, suan tai la rou, it's the la rou, that ma la, and garlic scapes. That's the suan tai, which are like that white part of the garlic stalk. And it does add a great garlicky flavor to the whole thing with a little bit of crunch. And there's nothing unlike the other ones, there's not a lot particularly special about this. It's just that the meat is the best meat. The sauce is my favorite sauce. And then the texture is perfect because there's not a lot of fat. There's just lean, best meat, and then the garlic scapes. So it's just a whole bunch of great flavors feeding into each other perfectly. But I went to the same restaurant to get it because there are not a lot of la rou places. It's a traditional dish, but it's not a lauded dish. It's like the normal people, common people's dish, which aren't revered very much in China. China likes to pay more attention to more innovative stuff, ironically, even though they are very stuck in the past. So there just aren't many la rou restaurants and not many la rou dishes in general around the city. So I went to the same one that was around the corner from one of my schools in Baishitiao, Beijing. And I went there almost every day. I got it all the time because it's, on this list. It's one of my favorite dishes. It was right next to me. And I was just like, something this good cannot be here forever. And it eventually did close down or was shut down with all the Beijing shutdowns. But I do have a funny story. I kept going there, and so the ma la, which is extremely spicy and extremely numbing, like physiologically numbing, your tongue gets a little numb, I just kept asking for more and more and more spice. Until one day I went to the restaurant and they were like, it's that foreigner who loves the mala flavor. And I was like, yeah, give me as mala as you can get it. That's my favorite. And the cook was like, are you sure you want maximum? We don't give it to anybody. Like, it's dangerous. And I was like, yeah. And I got it. And it was divine. It tasted so good. It knocked me right in the face, and I was so happy. And I scarfed it down and just enjoying every bite. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, that's weird. I can't like breathe real good. And I physically felt my throat closing up. And I'm not allergic to anything, which physiologically means that you aren't very allergic to most things. There's nobody who's not allergic to anything. Like, everyone's allergic to alcohol. It causes inflammation. It's just that, like, most people are not very allergic to many things. I am not allergic in most cases to pretty much anything. I can eat as much as I want of anything without having any sort of physiological reaction. It just happens that if I eat this many Sichuan peppercorns and this much la jiao in such a concentrated amount, my throat and esophagus and everything starts to swell. And it wasn't swelling so quickly that I was like, I think my breath is going to be cut off. But it was swelling quick enough that my throat was slightly obstructed. I was having trouble drawing in breath. So I stopped eating. I had like 5 pieces left. I had eaten the whole giant hubcap-sized plate of meat and sauce already because it's my favorite dish. And I was just scarfing it. So I put my chopsticks down and I just didn't freak out and I breathed slower. And I was like, okay, that's enough breath. So if this is as bad as it gets, and then it got a little bit worse, and I was like, okay, that's still enough breath if this is all it gets. And if I had breathed in quickly, you would have heard a whistling sound because my throat was closing so tightly. Swelling, I should say. But I kept calm, and I just kept breathing slowly and slowly. And after about 10 minutes, my throat started to relax and my face didn't feel so flushed. And I was better. So I finished the meal. I ate the rest of the plate and then I bounced. And that is my only experience with an allergic reaction, I think, in my entire life. And it was shocking and scary for a moment. And didn't teach me a thing because I finished the plate after it went away. And I'm very glad it went away after a few minutes. I was like, okay, if it gets to the point where I start making a whistling noise, we can call the hospital. But it didn't, and I was fine. And that is how much I love ma la suan tai la ro, or any ma la la ro dish. It could have killed me. And when it didn't, I kept eating it. Without a doubt. While I was almost choking, I was just looking at the remainder of the dish thinking, I'm going to finish that real soon. As soon as my throat stops swelling up, that's going down into my belly. Not a doubt. I knew I was going to finish that meal. So, suan tai la ro or any la ro dish. Fantastic stuff. You know what that reminds me? I was curious about the allergic reaction, so I bought a bag of Sichuan peppercorn to do like an experiment. That's the spice that is inside that mala sauce. And I put a whole bunch, like as much as I ate that day, in a dish I was cooking. And I ate it, and my throat swelled up just a little bit. And as soon as it started, I was like, okay, so if you eat an absurd amount of this, you'll start to get an allergic reaction. The more you know. Next, how I discovered I love frog. Now, I feel like every American grows up knowing French people eat frog legs. And I don't know how true that is, but it's the only thing that Americans actually know about French culture. And by actually know, I mean could easily not be true, but is portrayed in so much viewable media that we just assume it's true. But I had never tried them except at a buffet where the frog's legs were breaded and fried, which is a method of cooking I really don't like in almost any iteration. I don't like breaded and fried stuff. So I thought I hated frog legs. Then my friend, Chinese people, love to take foreigners to foods they think is weird and make them eat the weird food. I will have a companion episode to this about the weird or gross foods that I have eaten in China that I don't recommend. Except, try it, but if you don't eat them. And frog is on that list for a lot of Chinese people. It's also another thing that Chinese kind of look down on as a peasant's food, so not a lot of them eat it. And my friend gleefully took me to a hot pot restaurant where he was like, get the frog, get 4 orders of frog. And he didn't tell me he was going to order frog. But when they brought it, I tried most things, and the frog just looked like meat on a stick. It looked like a tiny chicken wing. So it wasn't... I already am a sort of adventurous eater. So when I saw a tiny stick of meat and there was an amazing bowl of hot pot soup in front of me, and he wasn't telling me what it was, and I actually didn't recognize it. I just thought tiny chicken wing, whatever. So he threw most of the first plate in right away to start them cooking in the hot pot. And then he was like, okay, it's cooked. And I was asking him what it was, and he was like, I'm not going to tell you. Eat it. And then I ate it. It's great. It's definitely a new type of meat. He's like, it's frog. And he thought I was going to be grossed out, and I was pleased. I was like, oh, great. Now I know what my new favorite meat is. This is fantastic. It's a tougher, sleeker chicken type meat, soft in texture, but with a good bite. Frog has more bite than that, and more flavor. I think crocodile is maybe my favorite meat now. But at that moment, before I had tried crocodile, after I tried frog, I was like, ooh, this is fantastic. And I ate huge buckets of the stuff at our hot pot. And my friend Terry was just staring at me in shock like a 90s sitcom reaction shot as I ate pretty much the entire thing because he doesn't really like frog. He just wanted me to eat it and then we could laugh about it and leave. And I devoured it. And anytime I got the chance to order frog, either mala frog, right, that spicy, numbing sauce that I like, stir-fried, or in a hot pot, I would always get it. It's a great meat, and it's a great meat. And very lean, but still juicy. The lean meat itself has a soft texture, as if all the fat in a chicken wing could be mixed into the dark meat. That's what a frog leg is like. It's great. Yeah. Dark meat on a chicken leg or a turkey leg is very similar to the texture of frog legs, actually. That's a good comparison. And the last time I was in China, there was this huge food court set out with 50 plus sanlunche, like people with these mobile carts that they cook food inside. And there was a frog one. And I tried all the different frog ones. I found the best one, and I went there constantly. I went there 2 or 3 times a week and would just get big plates of frog because I hadn't had it in so long, and it was a new flavor because it was in the south of China, but they still had a spicy version of it for crazy people like me from the north, I guess, and it was fantastic. Great dish, great meat. So frog legs can be prepared in a ton of different ways, and I recommend all of them. It's just a good meat, and it's so versatile. So, frog, fantastic. The next one is more of a snack, but I ate this maybe more than any other dish. I don't know. I eat this constantly. It's called liang cai, and it's all cold. Liang means cold, and cai means vegetables. So there are tons of stores and stalls all over China that just say cold vegetables on them, which I can see does not sound particularly appetizing. But they have a lot of different sauces you can get. I, of course, always get the spiciest one, mala. And I always get lotus roots, hai dai si, which is fresh sliced kelp, liang pi, which is fermented bean curd, the skin of that, which is sort of like a thicker, layer of tofu noodle. And the piece de resistance, duck neck specifically. I get the vegetables because they taste good. They're a good accompaniment to the duck neck. So the duck neck is cooked, and then they pour this the mala sauce over it. And the neck bones themselves have been cooked long enough that they're soft enough you can eat them. The meat itself has been cooked long enough. I don't know if you ever cook fowl neck, like chicken or turkey neck or anything. It's very, very, very tough. But if you steam it or cook it for an hour or so, it becomes incredibly tender and is my favorite part of any animal. When I was talking about those啤酒烤鸭, I loved the啤酒烤鸭neck. So very often at the end of a long day or any other day, I would find the best liangcai because they all have slightly different sauces. They usually make it in-house. And I would go to one of my favorite ones, get 3 or 4 duck neck. Because啤酒烤鸭, that's one whole duck, only has one neck. These places have as many duck necks as you can eat. So I'll get, 4. I think I've got 6 before at one time. And it'll be late at night, midnight, 2 a.m. or something. I'll have a backpack with a few beers in it, and I'll just hang out, sip some beers, watch a funny thing, or listen to a podcast and eat these perfectly cooked, seasoned duck necks with the mala sauce on them. The meat itself may not be as transcendent all of the time like the啤酒烤鸭or the腊肉, but it is intensely satisfying, and you can get as much as you want of it for a great price late at night. It's the drunk food, like after you've had a great night out, instead of getting waffle fries or whatever the heck, get the liangcai with this duck neck with a strong sauce on it. Oh, hits the spot. Or, before lunch or any time in the afternoon or any other time of the day. It's a fantastic little meal. Well, we're at like 40 minutes or something already, and I still have not touched shao kao, the barbecue, or hot pot, or a couple other dishes that are my also favorite dishes in China. So I'm going to sign off now. I'm going to give you a few names of cities to go to get these foods. And then I'm going to continue this in part 2. So you can get most of these foods around everywhere. While some are more popular than others in certain cities, down some hutong in every city, someone is cooking one of these foods that I talked about, and you can find it if you look hard enough. And it's worth looking. And also, I'd like to point out that any city you land in China, there is a train connecting it to all of these other cities and dozens, hundreds, thousands of cities and towns and villages in between. These are just to wet your whistle for traveling. So you can get to Shanghai tomorrow for $350. You can get to Wenzhou for $423, Guangzhou $424, Hangzhou $431, Beijing $434, Xi'an $474, Qingdao $500. You can jump on a plane, go over there, and even if you pay like I said, tomorrow $500 and you get a crappy ticket price like that, it should be closer to $370 if you're planning ahead at all. When you get there, when you're living there, your cost of living goes down 80% minimum immediately. So if you did spend $500 to get over there, you're not going to spend more than $500 getting an apartment and eating for the entire month. So you're still spending $1,000 that first month, and then the next month there's no flight ticket. So you spend $500 again. I mean, you can go there, have a whole food tour, and it's going to cost you way less over 2 or 3 months than you would have spent in 1 month staying in the United States, not eating all of this amazing food all over the country. Also, I don't know if you heard it, there's a windstorm going on today, so if you heard any eerie whistling or howling, that's not a banshee or a creepy haunting white crawling through my window. The wind is absolutely nut bonkers outside. I hope you have a great time on a food tour through China. Just the food. It's worth going, because once you get there, you'll like a whole bunch of other cool stuff. If you have any questions, let me know at bitofarambler@gmail.com, and I'll try to get back to you. Have a great rest of your day, or night, or evening, or afternoon, or morning.